What's up and welcome to First Geek 411. We are here with our book club on Hamlet by William Shakespeare. You might have heard of him. With me, we're going out of Shanine's order. With me, as always, from West Coast, Best Coast, is Emma. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about this. I had a phase in high school where I read and watched nothing but Shakespeare, so I am excited. I
Nerd.
can't wait. Uh, yeah, my track record is long and full of being a nerd.
All Shakespeare all the time.
All Shakespeare
And,
all the time.
and then, yeah. I'm excited for this. We'll get into it in a moment. For people that don't know, Shakespeare, Prince of Denmark, is home from school to mourn the death of his father, King Hamlet, who has died 2 months earlier. Hamlet is disgusted by the marriage of his newly widowed mother, Queen Gertrude, and his uncle, King Hamlet's brother, Claudius, who now has the throne. Shortly thereafter, a ghost appears to guards on the nightly watch, and the ghost is Hamlet's father, who beckons him to follow him and reveals that his brother Claudius poisoned him in the ear. Hamlet vows to avenge his father's murder. Before we get into our thoughts on the book, play, whatever.
Right.
You can find it or find us around the internet as One Geek 411. Come and join us in our Discord server. Shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. And you can watch live on Twitch and YouTube Monday nights around 6:30 Mountain Time. We have our book clubs. We have Daggerheart, and then we have our normal, regular scheduled podcast/spoiler casts that we have going on. And then if you're watching over on YouTube, you can also check out all of the VODs and all that kind of stuff for our previous things. And then we also have a Redbubble store if you want to get some of that merch. But let's go ahead and jump in. Oh, I guess I should say before we jump into book club itself, obviously Shanine is not here with us. She couldn't make it tonight. So Emma and I are holding down the fort. Is this going to be remotely as insightful as a normal book club? That's all up to Emma. So Emma's going to be carrying this one
The
hard.
pressure is on me to
Yeah.
carry the entire weight of the world for the three of us.
Yeah. And so we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but like I'm here and I'm doing
Yeah,
my best with that. And so,
we will both be doing our best.
yeah. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. What is your 3-word review of Hamlet by Shakespeare?
Insane? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah. I'll say just won't stop is my review. So, you kind of gave us a little bit of this at the beginning, but what is your experience with Shakespeare? What's your experience with Hamlet in specific? Thoughts, vibes, all of that kind of stuff.
Oh boy. As I said before we went live, I love me a good Shakespeare play featuring David Tennant. If you know, you know. He's got 3 for 3 at this point. Uh, B, I was a very much a nerd in high school, and the copy slash version that I read today for this month is the No Fear Shakespeare version that I learned about in high school because my library had copies of these. So I read all of the plays that were available, and then watched them. But it is essentially the old English version on one page and the modern English version on the other page. So they go through and translate his plays so that you can actually understand them, which is what got me into
Mm-hmm.
reading Shakespeare in high school. So I was like, you mean I can understand it? And this thing is actually the most hilarious thing I've ever read. Read much ado about nothing. Um, that I just ended up reading so many of them. And so now this was a return to me being an absolute total nerd in high school, um, to
Oh
just
yeah,
read one
it's
of them
all
again.
coming together.
And oh yeah. And getting this in the mail when it came, I was so happy because this cover design is like the definition of the kind of thing I was into senior, junior, and senior year of high school. And I was like, oh yeah, this feels like I'm back in 2013. Like, so I was excited.
Nice. Yeah. For me, I would say my experience with Shakespeare is probably the very stereotypical, like, high school experience
Hmm.
where we read Romeo and Juliet. I believe we read Macbeth, but I could not tell you if we read all of those or just like excerpts.
You mean you didn't read them for fun because
Like,
you didn't have a normal life like me?
yeah. And then I feel like, again, as with probably most people, like my interaction with Shakespeare comes not from the plays, but the countless adaptations of the works throughout gestures broadly at media. And so we'll have a question about that later on. But I definitely feel like that's pretty much how I interacted with Shakespeare was more through those mediums rather than like literally reading the plays. But then with this being a play, and I can go ahead and answer this one first, how did you interact with this? Like you brought up the No Fear Shakespeare. For me, I had fully intended to get like the script for this and read it while watching the play. That was my goal. Did I do that? I got the book from my local library, figured out what page the play started on, then proceeded to not open it again until like literally talking to Emma in the pre-show. And so that didn't happen. And
You
so
tried.
I think I like guilted myself into or like procrastinated myself into not being able to do that because I was like, oh, it's only like 100 something pages of script. Like it's not a long read. And then just completely did not have time. I also have been in a weird mood where I just like haven't wanted to like physically read anything.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's
You've just done
contributed.
so much reading this year that you've
Yeah.
tapped out. Which I
Well, I
did. I
think
beat my goal for the year. Just side note. My goal was
nice. Way to
16
go.
books. So 12 books for book club plus an additional four. I have beat that. So I'm very proud of myself. That was a
Nice.
side note.
Way to go.
Yeah.
And I think part of it for me, like we can kind of just like we're like way off topic for book club, but here we are on First Geek. Like, I feel like for me, part of it is that like reading for the Daggerheart show that people should go check out on our channel, that has
Mhm.
kind of taken up the same brain space as like reading just has in general for me. And I
Mhm.
feel like I just have not had the desire to like physically read a book because of that. Like I even got a book for a different book club, read the literal first page and I was like, nah, I'm good. And just put that
Yeah.
away. Like,
Yep.
so for me, I interacted with this. I found an audiobook. I put it over in the Discord, but I went and listened through it this morning. It was pretty well done, mostly. I think it's like volunteer actors, and the quality
Mhm.
of their Shakespearean English definitely varies greatly between them. And then I will say something that really confused me is in the audiobook, Hamlet is played by a woman or someone with a female
Uh,
presenting voice.
yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
very confused if I did not understand Hamlet. Like I
No.
had to like pull up the wiki and be like, he's the prince. Right? Yeah, like that's like the title. I
Yeah.
was like, I was
Yeah.
just so confused.
Yep.
They did an amazing job as Hamlet. Like it was very well done. It just like threw me for a loop at the beginning of like who was who. But I will say they did something really cool, which is like when it was a book being or a play being performed by multiple people, they actually introduced everyone at the beginning as well as named all of their characters. I was
Oh,
like,
that's
let's
great.
go. I love
I
that as a
love
vibe.
fabulous.
And so, yeah, so that's how I interacted with it. Not ideal, not what I wanted to do, but
Yeah.
here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. It's gonna be what it is. I mean, again, I did the side by side No Fear Shakespeare, in part because it reminded me of the high school, and in part because I was like, I will like want to actually know what's going on, and to try and mentally translate
Hmm.
the like the Old English would require a lot more effort mentally because I would have to actually focus a lot more. So
Yep.
it's going to be more enjoyable if I have the translation already and I can like read as far into the Old English as I want to and then, okay,
Hmm.
I've gotten lost. Um, what are they? I thought I understood what they were saying, but I don't anymore. Please help. And
Yep.
that made it so much more fun because I like kind of turned it into a game of like, okay, I want to see how much of this I can understand before like give up and get lost.
Hmm.
And I got pretty far in a lot of spots of like, oh yeah, I did actually follow that pretty closely. So it was as much a fun little game for me, an exercise in my reading skills as it was just like sitting there and enjoying things. Um,
Hmm.
and again, I do also watch Shakespeare plays for fun.
For
I
funsies.
still do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
I
I
feel like for
am
me,
in the film industry, so it
yeah.
does make some kind of sense that I would have an interest, some level of interest in Shakespeare plays.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like for me, a lot of it is I can understand the broad strokes. It's the idioms that always throw me off.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's so many like little expressions that are just like I don't know what this is a reference to, but this definitely feels like this is not
There
like
is
word for
one of
word
the cool
thing.
things this book is if there's like a super dated idiom or whatever, they'll put in a little footnote. This one is just saying that like in the Bible, Cain was the first person to kill someone else, essentially. But they'll put in a little side note of like, this is a random thing that isn't really common knowledge today. So no
Hmm.
matter how we translate it, like we're gonna have to put in a side note of like, this is what this means. And that was fun.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's a great way of handling it. Of like, hey, we're gonna translate it the way that it is, but here's like the additional context. I think that's a super
Yeah,
fun way because like, and that's a huge challenge of translation. It's like, how do you
yeah.
translate like idioms, expressions, similes,
Even
things
when
like
it's
that.
Old English to modern English.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But yeah, super cool. Let's get into our thoughts on the various characters. What are your thoughts on Hamlet as the protagonist of our play?
I mean, he's for this being a drama, he very much is a certain level of comedy within the
Hmm.
play itself. Whether or not I think there's a question in here later on. Whether or not he actually is insane or just pretending to be, like, he's a bit funny
Yep.
for just the entire process of, like, my father has passed away through nefarious means, those nefarious means being my uncle, who then turned around and married my mother. So I'm just gonna be the comedic relief to express my sorrows.
Hmm.
And then the ghost of my father is gonna come and yell at me for not actually doing anything about this piece of information I have learned.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna debate how to actually do something with the information that I've learned. And then I'm just gonna sit here and then get captured by pirates and make deals with the pirates because I
Yeah.
can.
Suddenly pirates like
Suddenly pirates. And it's
yeah.
like, okay, Shakespeare, I see you. So
Building
like
off that, have you ever
it kind of
seen
fit.
a Harry Potter musical?
Have I seen that was my very first exposure to Harry Potter.
Okay.
Like
So
before I read the books, it was a Harry Potter musical.
okay. So like you talking about that, and this is what I was thinking anyway. I'm glad we were on the same page. Throughout this very serious play, I
Mhm.
was imagining, and part of this was like the female voice as well, I think definitely like put me down this path. I was imagining Lauren Lopez, who plays Draco,
Draco
in a Harry Potter
Malfoy.
musical.
Somebody say Draco
Like,
Malfoy.
I imagined this as like her, or as the common joke of like, um, recast your favorite movie. Everyone's a Muppet who's the one human.
Yep.
I feel like that's kind of the same thing of like, here is this drama, but you have this one character that is in a lot of ways very silly
It's
and just
super
like,
silly. Like
and yeah,
Hamlet as a character, you could take out of this and put in any comedy, and the audience would just be like, "Yeah, that works." He may be a little mundane for a comedy, but he's still funny. Like,
yeah, yeah. Like there's so much good wit with Hamlet that I feel
yeah,
like is just so like, again, not that anyone or not that other people in the play are not, but I just feel like Hamlet is like so far above those that I thought it was really funny.
there was this
And now
whole
I want a
moment.
Star Kid Hamlet. But
Please, I would love that. I have a whole section of my pin board is dedicated to official Star Kid pins that they've released from their plays, and it is great. But there's this whole little section towards the latter half where it's him going back and forth with the messenger from his mom, I think, where they were both just saying like nothing in very fancy words. And there was this third, I think it was Horatio, who was just standing there going, Hamlet, you're saying absolutely nothing to this
they
guy,
call
and
him
he's
out
saying
for it.
absolutely nothing to you in return. Stop it. Like, this is insane. And Hamlet's just like, yeah, well, I am insane. So,
Let's see. Did you have any standout side characters? Or this could be something for you as someone who has been through this like before of like characters that you loved before that like you don't like as much now, or vice versa, characters you've come to appreciate from their perspectives, or as your perspective has shifted on them.
I mean, the Horatio truly, I think, is like, yeah, okay. I just found the scene where it's absolutely nothing. It's between Hamlet and Osric with Horatio in the background, where it's just a whole bunch of back and forth in super fancy language. But nothing is actually being said. But this plays in because um, Horatio is truly just like the only proper friend of Hamlet's who is stuck by him throughout the entire play, whereas the two who call themselves friends of Hamlet but are really Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who
Mm-hmm.
end up getting roped in by the king, the evil king, to like do stuff for him, um, and pretend to be friends with Hamlet. Horatio is really just like the only trustworthy person
Yeah.
in Hamlet's life, and I appreciate that. He's a stand-up character for that regard. It's like, you know what? You did your best. You were dealt an iffy hand in this whole scenario, and you did your best to like prevent things from happening in a
Mm-hmm.
terrible fashion. Um, Good for him. Uh, I think the ghost always comes in clutch because he just has the most random appearances throughout,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just the whole point where it's just like he comes in and shames Hamlet for something, and then leaves, and then has like 5 lines from off stage that's just witty banter back and forth, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So
The ghost definitely has the vibe of I needed to communicate this with the audience and I'm not sure how to do it. The ghost
yep.
appears. Like,
Hey audience, this thing is happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I really loved Polonius, Ophelia's
Yep.
dad. Part of that is A plus voice in the audiobook, like A plus old man, like wise old man
Yep.
voice.
Yep.
And so that's very fun. And then, yep, I'll kind of second the ghost with you. Like the ghost is the MVP of like, is the ghost real? People are seeing it, but like there's
There's been
scenes
at
where
least
like,
3 eyewitness accounts, but
yeah, but like Hamlet's the only one that can hear it talk? Question mark. And like what's happening? Like stuff like that of just like, again, super fun. And like, I also like the goes for the absurdity of like, this is a
Yeah.
pretty like normal political drama
Yep.
of like the king was killed, like the son of the king.
Surprise! It was the king's brother that did it.
Yeah. And like the king's son is trying to figure it out and like make a case and like prove it. It's like it's a pretty like normal like political drama, except for insert the literal ghost of the previous king here. Like,
This is where the commentary comes in that The
yeah.
Lion King is literally just Hamlet for kids.
Oh, we'll
So
talk about that later. Don't worry. I am not missing a chance to talk about Lion King. So,
I know, neither am I. Great kids movie right there.
yeah. Any standout moments?
I mean, again, just the back and forth between the ghost and the Hamlet when the ghost is off screen and like under the floorboards, I think is how they described it. And he's just like, "Oh, you're over here now. Um, oh, now you're back over here." Um, Pretty funny. The suddenly pirates. Oh, suddenly Hamlet has been captured by pirates, and you know, then uses that as a reason to send his two friends off to England with a nice letter, nicely written letter to get revenge on them for helping his evil uncle. Wild, but okay.
Yeah.
If if that makes you feel insane or whatever, um, just that. I one of the standout moments that I had that was just more, oh, I didn't realize that came from this. I have a quote, um,
Proud of you.
referring to do 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 do. Here we go. It's over here. This was the line that I wrote in an email last week because I realized that it was in this. But it is the line, "This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man." But I was like, "This above all, to thine own self be true." I didn't know that was from Hamlet. And it was exciting. And I was just like, yes, that's a stand-up moment. Good line right there.
Also uses willy nilly, which made me happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, standout moment, I love the duel at the end because it
Yeah.
is such peak Shakespeare drama of
Yep.
everything just goes poorly. Of like,
If it can go wrong, it will go wrong.
yeah, like Claudius and Laertes are gonna like kill Hamlet and they're going to poison him. And then like they have this poison goblet. And just in case Hamlet happens to win, but then like the queen drinks the goblet
Drinks. Yep.
instead and dies, and then
The
like
queen dead. The king dead. The prince dead.
yeah,
The king's um not nemesis accomplice dead.
yeah, and it's just
Like
this like this comedy of like, oh, everyone on stage is dead now. Of like, okay, like
we tried.
yeah,
We were going for one person. Now there's four people. This is why it's a drama,
yeah.
ultimately.
Um, but yeah, it's just so funny. Like again, it's such a classic like Shakespearean thing of like the
Yep.
most over the top solution that leads to the most catastrophic results. Like,
Yep.
and yeah, so I think that's super interesting. And then I liked the scene of Hamlet talking with his mother and then accidentally killing Polonius. Of just like, sure,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like, okay. I guess we're doing that now.
yeah. Of just
Um,
like again, like just kind of ridiculous. Of like, oh, now we gotta hide the body. like, like the least subtle person in this thing now has to hide a body.
yeah.
So
And he does it. And then he
he does.
gets asked where the body is, and he's like, I don't know. It's somewhere.
It's
You
somewhere
won't
off
know.
stage.
You won't know until he starts smelling up. Like,
Yeah.
you know that I hid the body. I know that you know that I hid the body. I'm not going to tell you where, though. That'll be on you in a couple of months.
Yeah. I'll be dead by then. Insert
Yeah.
dueling scene here. And so,
I don't have anything else to risk in this lifetime. So, might as well cause some chaos.
hmm any dislikes?
Um, a half a dislike. It's not really a dislike so much as a like it reads as a play because it is a play. So if you don't like
hmm
reading plays, then you're not
Yep.
going to enjoy reading this. So it's like that's more a dislike on a technicality of like if you're not into reading plays, then you're not going to enjoy reading this because it's a play. So it's all dialogue and no like descriptions or actions or anything. Like it doesn't read as a novel because it's not a novel. So that's more of a like a it's not an issue for me because obviously I read Shakespeare for fun.
Yep.
I have absolutely no issues with that. Um, so that's just like a hey, if you don't like reading plays, don't read this.
hmm
Um, but the other like it's not so much a dislike as just like a whatever. Like Hamlet doesn't really do a lot throughout the course of the play up until like he just floats around and bemoans his station in life and his
hmm
position for a while. And then he kind of does something when he hires a bunch of actors in a theater troupe to put on a play that is literally acting out his uncle
Killing
killing
his
his
father.
dad.
like
So like
the
that was
most on
kind
the
of a thing.
nose thing that you could do.
Yeah.
Like
But it
zero
was
subtlety.
literally just to see how the uncle would react. And then he just does nothing again until the end of the play, and after it gets shipped off to England and then suddenly pirates, but those were things done to him.
Yeah.
Um, so he just like kind of sits there and bemoans his life and doesn't actually do a whole lot. So it's like you have this information, you're not really doing anything with it. So what are we doing? Why are we here? Um, but that's more of a like it is still kind of filled out and made interesting by him going on these rants about things that
hmm
are like, okay, I guess this is like you are processing things and we're just gonna sit here and process things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. For
that is
me,
that.
kind of picking off of like what you're talking about there in Act 4 and Act 5, like there's this we like we've joked about the pirates, but like there's this weird like we're sending Hamlet to England, just kidding, he's back,
Yep.
that occurs, and
Yep.
it feels wholly unnecessary to me. Like there, I don't want to go into spoilers because this is something that like is a different medium. Go check out our Last of Us Part 2 spoiler cast where we talk about
Yep.
this. But there's a scene, you know, the scene that I'm describing, where Ellie is going somewhere, ends up somewhere else for like 5 minutes, and then is back on where
Yep.
she's trying to go. That's how it felt to me. Of
Yep.
like Hamlet
It's the most
goes somewhere,
random
so, like yeah,
moment.
like we didn't need this. Like I don't necessarily feel like that added anything to the play. That could like part of it is like Claudius is like beseeching the king of England to kill Hamlet and have Hamlet executed. But like
Yeah.
we didn't need to try to send Hamlet to England for us as the audience to get that across.
No,
Like you could have
not in the
had
slightest.
like had Claudius just talking about this with Hamlet's mom, with Gertrude. Like they could have just had this conversation, or like Claudius could have discussed this with Polonius. Like we didn't need to literally put him on a boat to try to get him somewhere. So that
You
was
know
something that I
what?
disliked.
Absolutely agree with you. As a result, though, we did get the famous graveyard scene because Ophelia passes away,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're digging the grave for her, and Hamlet shows back up and is like, "What's happened?" And then you get
Yeah.
Hamlet with a skull. But
Yep.
yes, It is like, why are we going somewhere? Why are we leaving the country? Only to return 3 pages later.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Because suddenly pirates. This is going to become the new Suddenly Seymour.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
just
Like,
suddenly pirates.
yeah. And so yeah, that was my big dislike. And like even going to like obviously the skull thing is iconic. But
Yeah.
like Hamlet could have gone elsewhere to hide from Claudius for a day and then come back and have this happen. Like again, like it just
Hmm.
like it feels like there's other ways to deal with this stuff that just did not involve the circumventing of sending Hamlet to England. It kind of felt like you see this in a lot of modern movies where it's like, oh, we're going to put a scene in China so that it'll do well in the Chinese box office. It kind of felt like that of like
Yeah.
Shakespeare's like, I'm an Englishman. I'm writing this play about Denmark, but I got to reference England somewhere. Like
Yep.
that's kind
Yep.
of how
I
it
gotta
felt to
appeal
me.
to the English audience.
Yeah.
Guys, there is
Um,
a fire half a mile from my place, and I can smell
yeah.
it. This is just a side note because it's distracting. I can smell it and I can hear the fire trucks. So,
Oh no. Hope
yeah,
everyone is okay.
it's a second story fire, but it seems like they have it under control. No. Yeah.
Um, One of I think the weird things about Hamlet is that compared to the other books that we have read, there was so much resources and discussion questions and stuff like that for Hamlet that we don't always have with our other books.
Nope.
like
This
like there's
this author is not an indie author at this
yeah,
point. Like
right.
everyone knows who Shakespeare is.
Yeah. And like even when it comes to stuff like looking for Alaska, where like we had like more discussion-y questions that Shanine was able to bring in, like that all
Yeah.
pales to Shakespeare.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I did go and do some digging for some various questions that people have had for various like Shakespeare book clubs and classes and stuff like that for us to discuss.
Neither of us are
And then,
Shanine
yeah. And
with
so,
our book club question writing skills.
yeah. And so, this first one I have, and you've referenced this throughout, and I guess this is one of the prominent commentaries for like conversations around Hamlet is do you think Hamlet was going mad or do you think he was feigning madness?
I personally like to think it's a bit of both. Like, I think there are moments, like, more at the beginning into the middle where he's like pretending to be mad or go mad or whatever. And then by the end, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy of
Mm-hmm.
like he does get so wrapped up in pretending to be mad as kind of like a bait and switch that he does just kind of dig himself into that hole. Um, and just like kind of loses himself in the same way that we see a lot of like method actors kind of like
Yeah.
go a little bit weird, so to say. So like I can definitely believe and see and like have read with this play that like Hamlet starts off with like getting this news from his father's ghost that like regarding his death. It just plots different ways
Mm-hmm.
to enact his revenge and like kind of decides that acting insane out of grief for the loss of his father is the best way to have a cover story
Mm-hmm.
for, anything that he might do. And then it also, as something that is touched on in the play, like he gets the public's favor throughout, you know, all of this and even beforehand, where the public really, he's the fan favorite of the public when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
royalty. So, like, he kind of builds up that audience of, even if I did do this thing wrong in response, when it comes out to the public that it was because like he found out that his uncle killed his dad and like he went to respond. Like, yeah, okay, that is like somewhat understandable, still not acceptable as you know, revenge is never acceptable. But like I can definitely believe it being to some extent like feigned and faked. But that doesn't mean that he was faking it the entire time. I definitely think that's in there where it's like you're not entirely there and in control, my friend, my dude. Like like
Mhm.
you're speaking to a messenger in like super fancy language even for Shakespearean English, and neither of you are saying anything at all of value. Like these are empty sentences that make no sense. Um so like you're not entirely yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think from my perspective, and this, I'm pretty much in line with you, but the way that I was thinking about it was it reminds me of when you start saying something ironically and then it just like becomes part of your vernacular.
yep,
Like,
yep,
he, like, Hamlet spends so much time ironically being mad to help his case that then when it comes time to not be mad, he is like swept up in this of like this is how
yeah,
he's been thinking for the span of the play. And so
yeah,
where he at the beginning is a pretty smart person, like all things considered. Like the again, the thing with the actors is a bit on the nose, but
yeah,
like as far as ways of like trying to stir up a reaction, like that's pretty clever. Like, and then I
yeah.
just feel like by the end we get him like with Yorick's skull, like, dude,
Yeah.
like here we are.
No regular person would be talking to a skull freshly dug up from a grave
Right.
and musing about who they were in a past life.
Yeah. And like even that whole scene just with the and like I'm not gonna remember the exact quotes, but like Hamlet's like pretty flippant, as are the gravediggers, but that's kind of their role in this. But is like pretty flippant to like, oh, someone's dead. Who could it be? And it was like
Ooh,
we as the audience of like, dude, you're like the prince. You're supposed to like know how to have decorum and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like,
You went through like manners school as a child
right.
or whatever. Like, yeah,
Uh, yeah. And like even there's I'm reading off the wiki for this, but um, when they get back from the time with at the graveyard, Hamlet explains to Horatio that he discovered Claudius's letter amongst Rosencrantz and Guildenstern's belongings and replaced it with a forged copy indicating that his former friends should be killed instead. Like what? Like there's like the escalation there
it's like
of
that is
like
an insane escalation to take.
yeah, of like these people who like probably knew nothing about what was going on. Like I don't remember if they know about the letter. They obviously were given the letter, but I don't remember if they actually know about the contents of it. But just to be like, you know what? Murder these people. Like just like the jump there is like again, we
Yep,
definitely have him going on the kind of insane path there. And so
truly.
then this was a weird question that I found. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. This may be a quick one. This may be a longer discussion. It was, would Hamlet's fate in the afterlife have been an important consideration for the Elizabethan audience?
I think that's very much like tax bracket dependent, so to
Yeah.
say, of like within certain tax brackets of like the Elizabethan audience, probably. but within others, probably not so much. Because we see a
Hmm.
lot like it's within that general chunk of history of like 100 years or so, we see all of this with like the separation of the church into the Church of England uh, because the king wanted to divorce his wife and
Hmm.
take on a new wife and all of these things. There's all of this historical stuff happening around just religion and the fate of the afterlife, so to say, that like it's some of it historically would have impacted
Hmm.
um, tax brackets, as I'm calling them, it differently. So for some people who aren't, you know, who think, oh, the King of England says it's all right for me, a rich person, to divorce my wife to then go marry someone else, like to then see Hamlet wander around and, you know, kill his uncle and the other guy at the end in the
Hmm.
um duel session, um, like they probably wouldn't think about it as much. But for lower income people who that is essentially like their a lot of their survival kind of leans on this idea that the afterlife is going to be their like way of is like their pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Like it might mean some more of like, oh, this is something like important. So like he shouldn't have acted
Hmm.
like that. Because they didn't in their own lives didn't have any other option. So I think it just kind of depended more specifically to, you know, the audience, where people were coming from. But I think at a lot of times, like a lot of the audience was lower income people in general. So there might have been some kind of secondary commentary to it, but I think Shakespeare was also known for putting out radical stuff,
Yeah.
as in radical for the time. So like it was kind of like if you go into an R-rated Alien franchise movie, not expecting there to be aliens that crawl through the vents and are like have these long black heads and secondary mouths coming out of
Hmm.
their mouths. And then you get that and you're like, what did I walk into? And people are just gonna be like, you went to an alien movie. That's
Yeah.
like, were you not expecting aliens?
Yeah.
Like, you went to a Shakespeare play. You gotta understand what you're walking into before you walk into it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. When I was like thinking about this question, like where it got me was the idea of like, were Hamlet's actions justified? And like, would the audience have read that like, as Hamlet seeking revenge for the murder of his father? And then like going through the means necessary to do that, and being viewed not necessarily as like a good person, but as someone who did the right thing, versus just being someone that, like, going to our previous question, is like literally mad and is just out here and like murders like four people at the end of the play,
yeah.
like,
Yep.
or by the end of the play. And so that was something that I was thinking of with this question. And like, I think it's hard to say. I had thought it would have been more interesting had we never known about what Claudius did. Like, if it was left up to like, did he actually kill King Hamlet? Like, it's unclear. Like, Hamlet's assuming there's this ghost, and like the ghost said this, but like, is that true? I thought that would have been a more interesting way to handle this versus Claudius basically been like, I'm living with the guilt, but how can I like do anything when I still have the spoils of my, like, of my
Yeah.
actions? And I'm like, oh, well, that's like less interesting to me.
Is
Um,
she more guilty than Hamlet in all of this with
yeah,
how everything turned out? Like,
yeah,
I think that's the real question is who is more guilty, Hamlet or his
hmm,
mother, who basically knowingly went along with all of this?
yeah,
Like, one you can argue is acting entirely out of grief, while the other you can argue is acting almost entirely out of greed. Like, it's in some ways greed versus grief, which are very different things. So,
Yeah. A major theme is truth and then reality versus appearance. What do you think of these ideas?
I mean, I think it's a lot of this play. I mean, because they're themes for this of like you have um just the the old guy. I'm terrible with names.
Polonius?
Yeah, Polonius, who essentially like at the start in my head comes off as like the wise old like
Mm-hmm.
father figure for Hamlet in many ways. Even though he's like, you're trying to date my daughter. I don't like that. I don't want my daughter to date you. He still feels very much like that advisory board. And then by the time of his death, he's been wrapped around the king's finger in some ways and is like,
Mm-hmm.
like you kind of had your death coming for you. Um, so it's like that and his friends um, being like double agents almost. There's a lot of this like putting on a false face to try and get info to then see how to proceed. Specifically with Claudius just trying
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what Hamlet knows and what he's
Yeah.
plotting. Um, so it's like there's a lot of it in this play,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, because they're themes. And I think that is kind of what Shakespeare was going out to talk about when he wrote this, because that's just all that it is he insane? Is he not insane? We
Mm-hmm.
don't really know for certain, but he's trying to enact revenge on his uncle who lied. And then they all end up dying. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Um,
As we said countless. um, I want to read. This is from the Polonius wiki. So shout out to whoever put this in here. It is cited. But it says, generally regarded as wrong in every judgment he makes over the course of the play.
yep.
Like,
Yep. Accurate.
I just think that's so funny. Of like, this is like such like a poignant way of saying it. And like, again, I really liked Polonius from like the depiction that was in the audio that I listened to. But yeah, it's really funny of just like, man, y'all don't like, no one really understands what's going on.
No.
And then like from this theme perspective, like again, I think the major theme being truth, like what is truth, would have been a lot more interesting had we not known about Claudius. Like that, like this as a theme is really one of the big things that I dislike. Of it's like, is um, is the reality of the situation that Claudius actually killed King Hamlet versus is that just the appearance, because it sure is really weird how King Hamlet died and then his brother very quickly married the queen and like has now assumed control.
It's all
Like,
very suspicious.
yeah. And I think that would have been more interesting, again, had we as an audience not known the truth of that situation. Of
Yeah.
like, and just have that like be left up to like, again, is it suspicion? Is it reality? And then like we also see this later on with Ophelia that we'll talk about in a moment. But like this idea of like what actually happened with her, and stuff like that. And this like, and we get some conversation down there with the gravekeepers for Ophelia in specific, but like this idea of like, well, how did she die? What was the actual like situation that occurred? And people don't know, and so people are speculating. And like, I think that that's another like way that you can take this theme and see it play out. Like I said, we'll talk a little bit about Ophelia later on, but
Mhm.
but yeah, I thought that was really interesting. This next one I want to read. This was part of a larger quote, but I just wanted to talk about a very specific part of this because I thought it was really funny. And it's said, Hamlet-like legends are so widely found, for example, in Italy, Spain, Scandinavia, Byzantium, and Arabia, that the core hero as fool theme as the end of that. And so I wanted to talk about this hero as fool theme because I loved this. This gets into what I was talking about at the beginning with Star Kid, and having Lauren is the person who plays Hamlet in my head. And I really thought this was interesting of like, and again, we've kind of like already hit on this and like danced around it as we've like discussed before, but like we have Hamlet that like seems like a pretty reasonable person. We can put Polonius in here as well of like, I feel like for Act 1 and even like into like Act 2 and stuff, they're both presented as these like knowledgeable people. Then as the play goes, they just get stupider and stupider as they like this, some of like the dumbest plans possible. And then like things just escalate. What do you think about this idea?
Yeah. You even see this with, I mean, this is still true today of like, there's a lot of these hero as fool characters out there. I'm thinking specifically, Loki in the Marvel universe. Mm-hmm. I mean, Loki in most forms of, Loki, but, even just from the core mythology. But specifically, I'm thinking Loki in Marvel because when we first get him, he's the big bad. But where he's at now, he's very much this like goofy fool type character of like, this still is something that people love and stand for and like root for in every aspect of that like hero genre, so to say. Like people love the person who's gonna win at the end of the day and is also like either a bit of an idiot or also the comedy relief of like just super goofy. And Hamlet very much is, sort of falls into this category of, well, he may die at the end, even though he's also the hero, but he is also like very fool-like and silly because we are given what he looks like at the beginning and what his normal is, which is a very smart individual and, insightful and things. And then by the end, he's like, not that. And I think it's just a fascinating way to like describe a certain genre of character that really is something that's out there and that people enjoy. It's like you wouldn't really combine logically a hero with the fool.
Yeah.
But it is such a common trope that is beloved in almost every instance that it happens in. People love that kind of character because it's someone who can be silly and open and a little bit insane while also like succeeding at their task.
Yeah.
So
you can still root for them through all of that. Like,
yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree. I like this is a trope that I enjoy. I think it was why I wanted to just add that like random excerpt.
It's a great trope.
And then then have us like not even read the whole excerpt, just stop at the part that I found interesting. But yeah, like as you said, I think that it's such a cool way of doing characters where like you can still feel for them even as they're dumb and they make dumb decisions. And then like it also helps that you can get around. I don't know if this is something that they would have been thinking of in Shakespeare's time, but like you can get around the trope of that like we deal with of like, well, if they're supposed to be so smart, why do they do dumb? Like, and you can just have them be dumb. Like, and not that like, and again, not that Hamlet is like.
We all have our moments where we forget a very basic word that we should know or whatever.
Exactly.
And we all make dumb decisions. It's just, that's what being human is.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's what you get at with Hamlet is just this like, yep, he like, oh, he's trying his best.
He's trying. He's trying his absolute best.
Yeah. Um, and then next question I have for us, part of the reason that we had decided to do Hamlet for book club for this month, and Shanine unfortunately can't be here for this this part of it in specific,
So sad.
is because in the upcoming Taylor Swift album Life of a Showgirl, track one is The Fate of Ophelia. So
I'm so happy
I
for
want to,
you. I
yeah,
will not be partaking.
to those of us who celebrate. And so
I'm so glad you're excited.
I was we'll talk more about this question later on, but I was, as a quick aside, I was talking to my boss today and like listening to Hamlet while I was like working on some stuff, and I told her about it and she's like, "You're such a nerd." I'm like, "Let me make this even more so. The reason we're listening to Hamlet is because of Taylor Swift."
Yep.
Like this isn't even
Yep.
just like,
You guys read it for Taylor Swift. I read it for my high
yeah.
school self because, as I said earlier, I love a good Shakespeare play featuring David Tennant. So I read it so that I could rewatch a David Tennant Shakespeare play.
I read it from me. And so I want to take some time, kind of just like discuss Ophelia as a character, but also discuss this idea of like her fate as it ties in with the song title. And obviously, we don't know what the song itself is yet, but as we do our homework assignment from Dr. Swift. So, what did you think of Ophelia from this? What do you think of her end and how things go for her? Like, what's your take on that character in specific?
In comparison to Hamlet, I think that Ophelia truly did actually go insane. Like,
Yeah.
fully, properly. Like, whatever, that looked like. Not like in the sense that insanity is a proper medical diagnosis or anything, but like, she had uh, this guy expressing his interest in her.
Mm-hmm.
Her dad then said, "No, you can't date him." So then she essentially had a whole breakup with him of
Yeah.
like, I did believe at one point that you loved me or whatever, or at least like you made me believe that. And then her father then gets killed by the guy who she had thought loved him. So it's just, for her specifically, a series of very unfortunate events, one after the other, in both family and love life.
Mm-hmm.
So her whole, like, the end of her story is, like, very unfortunate of, like, there's this whole discussion in the graveyard scene between the two gravediggers of, well, did she drown herself or did the water drown her? Like, was she just out floating in a pond to like try and find some sanity in her current world when when her clothes got too wet and dragged her down, or did she intentionally swallow water or whatever? Um, it's very unclear
Yeah.
one way or the other, but they do kind of settle on the side of like she probably did drown herself, which is very unfortunate because it's either way it's unfortunate because she
Yeah.
passed away. Um, but like she did have all of these things, one thing after another that was you've hit rock bottom in your life, unfortunately, and like as a woman in Shakespearean England, Victorian, not Victorian, whatever, this period in time, like you don't have a lot of options for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
unlike men. So, like Hamlet also had a lot of things happen to him, but he had a little bit more flexibility with how he could deal with those things because he was a male in a male dominant point in history where men had more rights and more freedoms than women. So within the context of, that chunk in time, for Ophelia to end up with that fate, it's like, okay, I kind of understand that outcome for her because she didn't really have a lot of options after being hit with all of these whammies.
Hmm.
And it sucks in every shape, way, and form. Um, because there was just no other way for her to handle it because she couldn't have gone out and gotten a job because she was a woman, and it would have been like becoming a maid or a, not even a baker, probably. She could just like help, but she didn't have a lot of outs to like deal with that drama.
Hmm.
So that it made her death even more sad because it for her was probably, as she saw it, the only way out. Um, so that is just like it makes it so sad because it's
Yep.
like that was probably your only option, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. It really feels like of all the character deaths, like Ophelia gets the short end of the stick.
Yep.
Um, and there's a this is from the wiki. In Act 4, Scene 7, Queen Gertrude reports that Ophelia had climbed into a willow tree, and that the branch had broken and dropped Ophelia into the brook where she drowned.
Hmm.
Gertrude says that Ophelia appeared incapable of her own, incompatible of her own, no, incapable, there we go, of her own distress. Gertrude's announcement of Ophelia's death has been praised as one of the most poetic death announcements in literature. And so I think this is really interesting. And this idea of, like, again, tying all of this in, of just as much as Hamlet's world has been turned upside down through all of this, like we don't know anything about like Hamlet's relationship with Claudius prior to the play. Like none of that's
Right.
relevant. But like what is relevant to the play is that like there has been some sort of like um, romantic feelings between Hamlet and Ophelia.
Yep.
And
Some
like
kind of courtship to some level.
yeah, to some degree, like, and as we get into the play, like all of that just gets instantly tore down
Hmm.
by um, by the men in Ophelia's life basically using her as a pawn.
Yep.
Like like
Yep.
and you hit on like the specific examples of that, but like she just has everything is just like, hey, it's cool that you like have had this. You need to basically break up with him. It's cool that like that you and him are close. You need to set up this time to spy. Like you need to
Yep.
like do all of this stuff, as she basically gets manipulated through all of it and like loses, as you were saying, like what probably very little agency she would have had in her own life for that time period. And
Yep.
like, and then on top of that, she then has to kind of deal with like the consequences of the actions that she was forced to take, of like now her father gets killed, and like and then we even get to the end where like who is it? It's Laertes and Hamlet that kind of just like see her death as like one last way to flex on each other.
Yep.
Like it's not even like really about Ophelia. It's about them being like, no, I loved her more, and like she just gets like
They
reduced
are
to that
literally fighting on her grave, in her
on her
grave.
grave. Yeah,
Like, they are arguing about who was the more important man in her life.
yeah,
And it's like, guys, this isn't about you.
right. And so if I'm going to guess for the song, I think that is what it's going to be about.
Yep.
Is like that specific part of it, of like around her grave, and that being like what you are, like you're reduced to not who you are, but what other people can gain from you. Idea
Yep.
of like again, life of a showgirl for an album title, but this idea of like
Yeah.
it's not actually about who you are. It's just about like
You're
how people
seen
are going
as
to
a
argue.
resource to further other people and
Yeah,
not as your own person.
yeah. So we'll see if that's true, if I'm going to be correct. I could also see us getting plenty of references to the Willow. I think that's
Yep.
likely to be a big part of this. But yeah, I'm very curious to what that is going to be about. I said we would talk about Lion King. Let's talk about Lion King. Do you have a favorite adaptation of Hamlet? And why is it The Lion King?
I mean, The Lion King is the only correct first choice, in my humble opinion, because I am a 90s Disney kid, and The Lion King is my favorite Disney specific movie of all time. Um, for anyone keeping score at home, Finding Nemo is my favorite kids movie of all time, but that's Pixar, so it doesn't count here because we're talking Disney specific. The Lion King, I love The Lion King. It is my favorite Disney movie and my favorite Broadway musical. I've seen it twice, and it is amazing in both its forms. Um, and it is a great way of it's hard to simplify in some cases a Shakespeare play into a format that modern audiences can understand just with like cultural the way that culture has changed and shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Because if this were to come out today in what it is now, it wouldn't have the same impact because people are like the monarchy. There
Mm-hmm.
isn't the same relationship with monarchy today that there was way back when. So this hit more when it first came out because this is all about a royal family, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, so for this to come out today, it would have to be like a president's family or like
Yeah.
the people close to a president or whatever. But with The Lion King, it's like you can understand that there is a certain social hierarchy in a pride of lions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like you don't have to put a lot of logic into that for it to be like, yeah, okay, like he's the head of the pride, and
Mm-hmm.
then his brother comes and stages his death, and the would-be head of the pride then runs away because his uncle framed him for it. Like
Yeah.
that's all the work you have to put into it for people to like latch onto that and be like, yeah, okay, that tracks. Moving on with the story. Like it's terrible. Like the whole scene between Scar and Mufasa is like so many people will say that was the most traumatizing scene in
Yeah.
all of my childhood because yeah, it's
Because yeah, it was.
terrible. It's a terrible scene. Like it will make people cry even today. Um, so literally they just reframed it into a context that like A, you don't have to think about it too hard because it makes some kind of sense in terms of it gives the same impact that Hamlet as a play had back when it
Mm-hmm.
was written, just for modern cultural acceptances of more people understand the generics of how a lion pride works. Of like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, group of lions. There's probably one guy that's bigger than the rest and, you know, puts down the law of the land. Great. That's all we need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it plays into all of the same themes, um, but just really puts it in modern context and makes it enjoyable and fun and still very fun for audiences and also makes it child friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so delightful and the musical numbers fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's definitely Lion King. Like, it's such a iconic piece of like our childhoods, and
Yep.
it's really interesting. Like, kind of just like doing some research as like part of this. Um, like talk about like how like Sesame Street has taken it on and done part of it. Like, you also get like homages in various films like or various like shows like the Brady Bunch, MASH, The Simpsons, Star Trek, Gilligan's Island. Um, like there's like so many ways that like it permeates like different pieces of culture. So another example like from this is like the creator slash writer of this show, Sons of Anarchy, has mentioned in
Hmm.
interviews that it centers around a closely knit motorcycle gang,
Hmm.
which is loosely based on Hamlet. And so,
Yep.
like it's such like a prevalent part of like again just like so many different pieces of culture. Just and I think this hits on like what you're talking about. Of it's so the theme of someone is in charge, they get overthrown, and then someone close to the initial person tries to solve what happened is
Yep.
such like a tried and true way of telling a story that's really
Yep.
interesting and like
That people
as
will
like
always show up for.
exactly like you get a bit of mystery, you get a bit of political drama, of intrigue, like those ideas are just like permeate so well, and you can also tell them in so many different ways. Like you
Yep.
can have you can focus on the usurper's role in it as they grapple with like the consequences of their actions and the paranoia of like will someone do this to them. Like you can have it
Yeah.
more so how this one is. Of course, like we don't just follow Hamlet through this, but like you can have it through the person who's trying to solve the case and figure out
Yep.
what happened and then get revenge. Like there's so
Yep.
many ways that you can tell that story. And so
Yep.
I think it's really cool and very like again very classic, very iconic premise that is very easy to adapt to so many different settings.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's almost it's a very universal basic story format in
mm-hmm,
a lot of cultures, even like not even just Western cultures, but there's a lot of, Asian stories and from different African cultures. Like there's a lot of very similar concepts, like
mm-hmm,
um that that idea of even in like I'm thinking of Native American in Pacific Northwest tribes because that's where I grew up. There's stories of the raven flew in and stole pieces of the sun from one of the other gods to then take back to the people, and that's how we got fire. Of like, it's not copy paste, but it is like a someone going up
mm-hmm.
against authority
Yep.
to for the greater good, essentially. Like there's a lot of similar concepts across different cultures of that general idea of like just power taking control for the
Mm-hmm.
sake of power, and then someone else going, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Not in my book.
Yep. As we get towards wrapping up, anything else stand out to you? Themes, quotes, comments, anything like that?
I mean, I mentioned the one earlier. I have a couple of spots that I marked in part because I've gotten clips on social media recently of different British actors performing just scenes from Hamlet. And I think my favorite one that I saw um, was Adam Scott, and I don't remember who the woman actor was, but they were doing the scene between Hamlet and Ophelia where Ophelia's like, um, well, Hamlet's like, I did love you once, and she's like, indeed, my lord, you made me believe so. And I just thought that whole interaction between the two of them, like
Mm-hmm.
essentially breaking up, was super fascinating and powerful because it was just like he's saying, no, but I did love you. And she's like, you only made me think that you did, essentially, because she had been convinced by her father that he was pretending. So that was just like a standout moment of like the two of them talking about what their relationship actually was. And it was at one conclusion, at another, and that was a bit of a tragedy. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All I'll say here, I originally had this as like its own question, and then for time, I skipped over it. But this is where the famous "to be or not to be," that is the question,
Yeah.
comes from. That is a much longer monologue than I remembered it being.
Hmm.
Like it's, I mean, it's by no means like a 10-minute monologue or anything like that. But it is like a much bigger thing of like, I feel like so much of that quote just gets boiled down to that little snippet and not all everything else that goes on with it. And I was like, oh, we're still going. Like, and this, it's like a very interesting, like like introspective comments from Hamlet during this. In a way that, again, like in my head, as someone who's like has read it before, read this like monologue before, like didn't remember it being this much and this like detailed. And so I really thought that was interesting to go through.
For video audiences, it starts here and ends here. So it's essentially a whole page, an entire page plus like 2 or 3 lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's just like way more than I remembered. Like, and again, I don't know. Like I said, I feel like I've read it before, but as I mentioned even at the beginning of like, I don't even remember if like it was an excerpt, if it was the whole thing. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I really liked that. That's something that like, if you asked me is to be or not to be in this, I would have been like, oh yeah. But like, I also kind of forgot about it until like it happened. Like it just wasn't something I was thinking of. I'm like, oh, it's here. This is the meme in its original like source and
format.
So, format. And so I thought that was interesting. And then the final thing, any final thoughts on Hamlet, on Shakespeare, anything like that?
10 out of 10 would read this again. I will probably also be getting more of these notes so that I could read more of them again. I think I have like 2 plays in the storage unit in Colorado, so I have to like dig through those to see which ones I have. Or I may just buy whatever copies strike my fancy and then Goodwill whatever duplicates I have. But I definitely want to read more again because it was worth it.
Yep. I still have it from the library. I mean, like I like the ebook, and so I still want to go through and actually like read the play, see if I can find like the space to do that. And if not, I don't know. We'll figure something else out. But I really enjoyed this. It was a fun. Diversion's the wrong word, but like this was so different than what we have done from like our previous book clubs where like
it's a fun change in book club.
Like it's interesting to go and do. And like when we've done shorter things before, like it's not like we haven't read like short works, but like it was definitely interesting to go through and actually like have something that like, again, doing the play for is like 3 hours. Like it's not something that's that crazy, especially compared to some of the other stuff that we've gone through as I go and try to find our playlist and kind of take a look at some of the stuff of like we've had some pretty short stuff of again, now it's not letting me view what is in the playlist. There we go. Videos. But like even like we've done even like Daredevil Born Again as like a recent example of like that's a much shorter work. Like we did Biren and Luthien, and that was something that like while the book was bigger, the actual like story of Biren and Luthien was much shorter.
We also
so
all just
it's always
dragged our feet on reading that one entirely all the way through because it was kind of boring, to be honest.
Yeah. I've made my stance on Biren and Luthien well known. And so, but even stuff like we did The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, like again, another example of like a classic thing that was not something like crazy long. And so it's always interesting to go and get in these other formats. And it's something that I've really enjoyed. And hopefully at some point we can get Shanine back on and have her share some thoughts on Hamlet. But as we conclude, just kind of as our housekeeping, next week we'll be back with Daggerheart Tier 2 play.
Yeah.
Everyone leveled
Yeah.
up last session, and now we are
Yeah.
back. Starting part 2. And then also want to say that we will not be doing a book club for October. We'll talk more about why as things go on and as we get into November. And then with that, we don't 100% have the timing for our next book club. Obviously, for us as Americans, the end of November is also Thanksgiving time. And so we're not 100% sure what that's going to look like either. And so we may end up doing like an early December book club rather than doing a November one. But stay tuned. We'll figure all of that out and get that announced as we get towards the end of the year. And so, and then, yeah. As a reminder again, you can find us around the internet as OneGeek411. Join us in Discord. Let us know what books we should be reading as we get into holiday season. And then you can also shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out that Redbubble store. Watch live on Twitch and YouTube Monday nights around 6:30 Mountain Time. And then you can find all those VODs over on YouTube. And then you can also find us on our personal social media. Mine is Humar Whittle.
Mine is I am not prepared with an I am the prepared. No more Twitter because I deleted it.
It's been a great week.
Use your imagination.
Don't go on a random trip to England with people that intend to have you murdered.
Where there's suddenly pirates.
And suddenly pirates.
Suddenly pirates.